Now, a special 2-part edition of 48 Hours.
Four young women. 3 murdered. 1 left to tell the story. The Hollywood Ripper.
He's been called a serial sexual thrill killer.
Hollywood, 2001.
A 22-year-old believed to be actor Ashton Kutcher's girlfriend is stabbed to death.
They were going to be hanging out.
The injuries that she suffered were horrific.
El Monte, California, 2005.
A 32-year-old woman is stabbed in her home.
There was slashing and cutting. There were multiple stab wounds, not just a couple.
Santa Monica, 2008.
A young woman is woken up by a man attacking her with a knife.
She was stabbed multiple times in her chest and shoulder and right arm. She fought. She stood up and she fought.
They were all young, they were all attractive, they were all female.
The media started calling him the Hollywood Ripper. But had he killed others? That was the question investigators more than 1,800 miles away outside Chicago had been wrestling with. It would take a 48 hours investigation to find the answer. Rex, where was her julo?
The window was this window.
Outside Chicago, 1993.
The murder happened here in the middle of the night. Someone jumped out of the bushes and stabbed 18-year-old Trisha Picacho to death.
My daughter Trisha was murdered when she was 18 years old.
I was the one who found her. I woke up and I had a cup of coffee and I was going out to my van. And I just happened to see 2 little tennis shoes sticking up by the side door. And when I saw it was her, I dropped the coffee cup.
Who would do this to her? Why would anybody do this?
She was a nice girl.
I died right then and there.
We were told that we have to understand that some murders go unsolved. And I was like, there is no way somebody is going to come to my door, outside my door, and do this and get away with it.
He's cold. He's devious. He's a predator. And we've got ourselves a serial killer.
They never saw it coming. Trisha, Ashley, Maria, Michelle. The trial of an accused serial killer has dominated the headlines here in Los Angeles. He is known as the Hollywood Ripper.
May it please the court, the methodical and systematic slaughter of women. That's what this case is about.
It is not overstating it to say this is a sensational murder trial.
Ashton.
On the witness list, Ashton Kutcher. He was scheduled to go on a date with one of the victims the night she was murdered.
Ashton Kutcher talked about what would have been his first date with one of the murder victims.
For me, this story begins near my home just outside Chicago.
One question has haunted this quiet Glenview community. Who killed Trisha Picacho and why?
The murder of Trisha Picacho is a case we've been working on since the summer of 2008. It took years to gain her parents' trust, that maybe somehow by telling Trisha's story, we could help catch her killer. It wasn't long after sunrise on the morning of August 14th, 1993.
I was going out to my van, and when I saw it was her, I ran over there and saw what happened to her.
Rick Picacho had just walked out the garage when, out of the corner of his eye, he saw his 18-year-old daughter, Trisha, splayed out on the landing, stabbed to death.
I tried to revive her. That is the worst feeling in your life, when you can't do nothing for somebody you love.
I remember just waking up to this blood-curdling scream of my father, and it was, "Doug, call 911, Doug, call 911.
Trisha's brother, Doug.
I don't really want to describe the details of what I saw.
That's okay.
I have nightmares about it all the time.
The police arrived, and Rick had to make a difficult call to his wife, Diane.
He called me at work and said, "You have to come home. Trisha's hurt."
I heard a lady screaming, and the mother had just exited her vehicle, and she was running towards Trish.
Officer Ray Salevich saw her pull up.
And I basically tackled her, and I didn't want her to see Trish like this and remember her daughter like that.
Who would do this to her? There is nobody that knew her that would do this to her. My daughter never did anything to put herself in harm's way.
No.
She was the type of girl that you knew where she was, what she was doing, and you never had to worry about her.
Trisha was also the type of girl who made the most of high school. She took calculus, was on the debate team, and played clarinet in the band. At the time of her murder, she was just a few days away from moving on to the next chapter in her young and exciting life as a freshman at Purdue University.
She had a great attitude about everything, and she knew what she wanted out of life.
Were you close with her? Trisha was an amazing girl, was probably one of the most energetic and happy people I've ever seen.
Trisha's close friend Karen Jones spent a lot of time at the Picacho house.
Her mom was very caring and treated us all like her children.
Trisha's younger brothers, 17-year-old Doug and 13-year-old Tommy, often had their friends over.
I fed the whole neighborhood. Everybody ate there.
They were just a very warm family.
On the night of August 13th, Karen, Trisha, and most of the kids from their senior class went out. One last hurrah for the summer.
That night, a whole group of us got together for a scavenger hunt party. One of the final parties of the summer before we all went off to college. We ended things at the restaurant and people started getting in their cars to go home.
Police believe it was around 1 a.m. as Trisha walked toward the side door of the house, keys in hand, that the killer grabbed her left arm, twisting and breaking it, and then stabbing her 12 times.
I remember my chest just sink the minute I realized that she was gone, and there was nothing I could do to help her.
Detectives interviewed dozens of people. Some parents were too afraid to even let their kids talk. No one seemed to know anything. There were no leads, no arrests.
To be honest, I think we were zonked out for a long, long time. People talk about closure. My experience is there is no closure. That void is always there.
Rick Picacho also had no idea how to go on living in the same house where he had found the butchered body of his beautiful daughter. The family moved out for 4 years. Eventually, they decided it was time to come back home. Shortly after, they had an unexpected visitor. former high school football player Michael Gargiulo, one of Doug Picaccio's closest childhood friends.
Michael, you've known since he was how old?
Since probably he was in 2nd grade, because he lived on the next street. Michael showed up at the door, and he says, I need to talk to Rick. And I said, well, he's at work, Michael. And he said, well, can I wait for him? I said, yes. He sat and waited for over an hour for him to come home from work, sat at my kitchen table.
I remember walking in the garage door, and I looked at him. He had this look on his face like he was going to say something to me.
But before Michael Gargiulo had a chance to say anything,
the garage door opens, his father and one of his sisters come in and say, we have to leave, Michael. And they picked him up and whisked him out, and the door closed. And I told Diane, I says, golly, that was kind of odd. But the look on his face, Maureen.
At that point, Rick, did you think this kid knows something, or maybe he even had something to do with it?
Yes.
You believe that was the moment that you started to think Michael Gargiulo may have had something to do with her death?
No doubt about it.
The Picaccios told authorities, but it was too late. Michael Gargiulo had disappeared. Soon after he left Chicago, Mike Gargiulo turned up in Los Angeles. Like a lot of other dreamers, he wanted to be an actor or a model. Anthony DiLorenzo and Timur Leary worked with Mike Gargiulo in the late 90s. They were all bouncers together at a Hollywood nightclub called the Rainbow Bar and Grill. What did he tell you he was doing out here?
Acting, modeling.
Isn't everybody?
Right. Yep.
He was doing the Hollywood thing.
Yeah.
He's doing the Hollywood thing.
Yeah, he sure is.
Did he have a girlfriend at the time when you were all hanging out?
He always had girlfriends.
Yeah. He always had girls after. He was a good-looking, clean-cut guy. You know, the waitresses were always after him.
But Gargiulo moved on from the nightclub and began working for a heating and cooling company.
Who was the first one among you to meet Michael Gargiulo?
I was.
Chris Duran, Jennifer DeSisto, and Justin Peterson spoke to us in 2010. They were the kind of good friends most young people would be attracted to.
Really, the connection between this big group of friends was kind of partying and having a great time. Very free-spirited lifestyle.
Right.
You were young.
We were young.
Their introduction to Mike Gargiulo started with a flat tire.
I'm changing my flat tire, and this guy comes walking down the street. Yeah, he was good looking. He stopped and offered to help me change a tire.
At the same time, 22-year-old Ashley Ellerin came out of the house she was renting on the street. Mike Gargiulo noticed.
And Ashley was standing there with me, and he was good looking, and she's beautiful. I was like, no, it's okay, I know how to change a tire. So he stood there talking to Ashley, and they were, talking and flirting. They exchanged numbers, and that was our first meeting.
Did you have any feeling about him one way or the other?
I mean, he was just, a good-looking guy walking down the street offering to help.
Ashley Ellerin, the young woman Mike Gargiulo had immediately noticed, was a part-time fashion student.
She was amazing. I mean, she just had this charisma to her that she could go into a room and walk into the room and just take complete control over the room. And
she was just beautiful and fun and spontaneous.
She had a lot of friends.
Ashley was a 22-year-old, attractive girl living in the Hollywood Hills.
And she liked to have fun?
Absolutely.
She liked to have fun. We had a lot of fun.
The guy they only knew as Mike kept trying to spend time with Ashley.
He called the house a lot after their run-in.
Called and had begun just showing up, uninvited.
Seeing that we were hanging
The friends
out
say one night he walked into the house during a party, sat down and was laser focused on Ashley. But Ashley was not interested. Back then, lots of men were interested in her.
Hollywood is Hollywood. Interacting with celebrities, that is how it is. I mean, they live here.
One celebrity in particular had started calling Ashley. It was then up-and-coming TV actor from that 70s show, Ashton Kutcher.
Why
is everything doing that? We had hung out with them a couple of times.
Let's go back to the night that Ashley was supposed to go out with Ashton Kutcher.
I knew they were going to be hanging out.
The next morning, Ashley's roommate, Jen, came home.
I entered the house, and Ashley was laying across the 2 stairs, covered in blood.
The body of 22-year-old Ashley Ellerin was found by her roommate early Thursday morning.
And that's when I realized that, no, this is not, this is not happening. Who could have done this?
When Jennifer DeSisto got home that morning in 2001, she walked into a gruesome and terrifying scene.
At that point, it was just like a sense of trauma just came over me. I thought maybe the person was still there, and I kind of ran out hysterical. I dropped that phone and ended up getting to the car and calling from my cell phone, 911.
Ashley had been attacked just after taking a shower, stabbed 47 times. Her body was lying just outside the bathroom.
Had you ever seen anything like that before in your life?
I absolutely had not, and it still traumatizes me to this day.
Police arrived quickly and started asking questions.
Who could have done this?
It must have been one of the first questions that police asked you, though, was,
Yes.
was anybody angry with her? Did she
Right.
have any enemies? It sounds like such a trite question,
Right.
but
Right.
you would think that based on what you saw, only someone who hated another person could
Right,
do that.
absolutely, yeah. And also it was a given from the get-go that it was obviously someone she was either familiar with or knew to let them in. Because as we had said, the house was kind of double gated.
You believe that Ashley let him in?
Yes.
Okay, this is Pinehurst Road, and this is Ashley Ellerin's former residence.
Hollywood homicide detective Tom Small says there was little to go on.
No blood splatter outside, no pieces of clothing, no material that would lead you to one particular individual.
No. We had teams of detectives searching the interior and the exterior. We walked the streets, we canvassed every building, door knocked every house.
Were you kind of baffled initially?
Very much so. You know, we were just looking for any type of direction or clues that would to lead to a suspect. So we had to start with the victim and work backwards, find out her associations.
They definitely wanted to talk to the person she was supposed to be on a date with that night.
How you doing? How you doing? Congratulations.
Actor Ashton Kutcher.
And what role has he played in this as a witness in any way?
He is a person in a group of Ashley's friends. He's one of many, and he was a friend of hers.
Kutcher and Ashley had plans to go to dinner, but he was running late and kept pushing back his arrival. Kutcher told detectives that at 8:24 p.m. he spoke with Ashley, who told him she'd just gotten out of the shower. Ashton Kutcher didn't actually arrive at Ashley's front door until around 10:45 p.m., at which point he says he was confused because the lights were on, but no one answered. Just as he was about to leave, he glanced through a window and noticed what he thought was red wine spilled on the floor. Turns out it wasn't wine, it was blood.
It just was a very bad scene. A lot of anger, a lot of rage. Somebody had isolated Ashley Ellerin to kill her and was very, very angry when he did it.
Could anyone think of someone who wanted to hurt Ashley?
Not really, almost to a person. Ashley was considered to be, like the life of the party. She had a lot of friends from different walks of life, friends from school, her roommates, celebrity type folks.
Kutcher wasn't the only man police were interested in talking to. This is Mark Durbin, a not-so-famous actor who was also Ashley's property manager. Durbin and Ashley were secretly having a relationship, and he and Ashley had been intimate earlier that evening. But like Kutcher, he had fully cooperated with investigators, and both men were ruled out as possible suspects. While police had no concrete leads, Ashley's friends couldn't shake the feeling that the guy who seemed fixated on Ashley was involved.
In your initial conversation with police, did you mention Michael Gargiulo to them?
Yes. I didn't know his name, but the heating and air conditioning guy.
And did they pay any attention to that?
I know they took note. I don't think they took it very seriously or that much of a threat.
He was not in their circle of friends. They were creeped out by him.
So when you hear that, does it strike a chord with you?
Well, I mean, it takes a little bit more than that to get focused on somebody as a suspect in a case like this.
Gargiulo wasn't really on Detective Small's radar. Ashley had a large social circle. There were hundreds of people to talk to, and he was just the creepy air conditioner guy. It would take months for police to learn his last name and put him on their list.
It weighed really heavy on me personally, because everybody has the case, and this one was mine. My frustration was, why can't I get the evidence I need to solve Ashley's murder?
Back in Cook County, just outside Chicago, Trisha Picacio's murder was unsolved for nearly 10 years. Her mother, Diane, was relentless, hounding investigators.
At least once or twice a week.
And did you feel like anything was being done in that time?
No, but I kept thinking maybe I just keep going and talking to them and keep telling them every little thing that came to mind. It was just...
It did help some of them.
It helped me probably emotionally, because it was almost like I could talk to them. They knew what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
I have the tenacity to keep going until it does happen.
You're not going to give up?
I'm not going to give up, no. My daughter is going to get the representation that she deserves.
Cook County Sheriff's Detective Lou Salo was assigned to the case in 1999.
We had the benefit of technology when we took the case over.
By 2002, new DNA technology allowed investigators to take a fresh look at the evidence collected from the crime scene.
We were hoping to establish some type of DNA profile, give us an idea of a possible offender.
So what's the first big test result you get back, the first new piece of information from this round of DNA testing?
Well, the biggest thing is when we got the unknown male contributor from the fingernails.
Male DNA found on Trisha's fingernails. Now they had to match it.
At that point, we began the DNA campaign of everybody, including the Picacho family, her friends of hers that were with her at the road rally that night. We even tested the dog.
You even tested the dog.
Yeah.
Detectives wanted samples from anyone they had talked to back in the day, and Michael Gargiulo was on their list. Detectives heard Gargiulo was now living in Los Angeles, so they went to the LAPD for help.
I had no knowledge they were even coming.
By now, Detective Small had begun to take a closer look at Michael Gargiulo.
And all of a sudden we get a phone call. Cook County's in town. He says, well, who is it you're looking for? And they named Michael Gargiulo.
You said, hey, that's my guy.
They showed up. I held up a photo. I said, is this who you're looking for? And they said, yeah. How do you know him? I said, well, right now he's a potential suspect in a murder investigation. What do you guys have?
Detective Small agreed to help Cook County find Gargiulo and collect a DNA sample. In 2002, almost 10 years after Trisha Picaccio's murder, the LAPD caught up with Michael Gargiulo.
We obtained Mr. Gargiulo's DNA sample, and
And he was cooperative with that.
Not really, but it got done.
The DNA sample was sent to the Illinois State Police Crime Lab. The results were stunning. A match. It was Michael Gargiulo's DNA on Trisha's fingernails. Case closed? Not exactly.
Did you think it was enough to move forward?
Well, I thought it was, but I'm not the attorneys.
Cook County Detective Lou Sala.
It was explained to me, and the explanation made sense at the time, that they just wanted some type of corroborating evidence.
They needed something more than the DNA.
Something more than that.
Because, they said, Michael Gargiulo's DNA might have gotten on Trisha in a way that had nothing to do with the murder.
At the time, he was a friend of the family. You know, and one would have to wonder, could it have gotten there by casual contact?
And had there been casual contact in the hours before or the day before that she was murdered?
There was, the day before.
The day before her murder, Gargiulo was driving with another friend, Scott Olson, when they saw Trisha.
We drove past Picassio's house, and who do we see around in the corner, walking away from us? There's Trisha. Mike's driving, he kind of swerves over, slows down, swerves over, gets right behind her, and we saw she was crying. So she's like, hey, give me a ride. I'm like, whoa. Okay, sure, get in. So she gets in the car, said, take her to so-and-so's, take me to so-and-so's house. So we just drove her, we dropped her off, and that was it.
When we spoke to Jack Blakey from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office in 2011, he confirmed that because of that ride and because Gargiulo had spent time at the family home, he cannot be sure if Gargiulo's DNA on Trisha was from the attack.
The evidence just hasn't been there. I wish we could bring closure to her family tomorrow.
So with nothing else tying him to Trisha's or Ashley's death, Gargiulo was only a guy who had the bad luck of knowing two different women who had been murdered in exactly the same way. Gargiulo left Hollywood and continued doing what he always did, never staying in one place for too long.
How come nobody keeps tabs on this guy?
I don't know if they tried. My understanding was he kept kind of a low profile. I think he knew he was on the radar.
Over the next few years, Gargiulo had several girlfriends and even became a father. In 2005, he settled in suburban El Monte, 20 miles east of Hollywood. Then, just before Christmas that same year, in that same neighborhood, there was a murder. The victim was another attractive young woman.
We're talking about a 90-pound, 32-year-old woman who's defenseless, asleep in her bed in her home, where if there's any one place in the world she should feel most secure. That attack is every woman's nightmare.
Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department homicide detective Mark Lilyfield.
This is a building where the murder happened. Behind me in apartment number 20 is where Maria Bruno lived. She had 2-year-old twins, and then I believe a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old.
In the months before her death, Maria and her husband had several violent fights, including one where her husband punched her in the face. She left him and found an apartment in this gated complex.
She had picked that building specifically because it was very secure. You had to either have a passcode or a key to get through the front door, so it was a pretty secure building.
But someone got past that security.
The suspect entered through the kitchen. It appears from the evidence that he obtained a weapon there in the kitchen.
A knife?
Correct. Her body was somewhat mutilated, and you just, that's crap you see in the movies. In real life, that is very rare. It just doesn't happen.
There was very little evidence left behind, except for one blue cotton bootie found in the courtyard outside Bruno's apartment.
Just about where we're standing is where that blue cotton bootie was at.
Right here?
Yeah, right here, right here. And it was kind of out of place. Actually, on the sole of the bootie was a drop of blood, and DNA testing proves that, in fact, it was Maria's blood.
Police immediately took a hard look at Bruno's estranged husband. There was the history of a turbulent relationship, and drops of Maria's blood were found in his car. But Maria's husband told police that earlier that evening, He and Maria had decided to rekindle their relationship. They went to a restaurant where the manager confirmed Maria had cut her finger and was bleeding as they left. And like Picacho, then Ellerin, and now Bruno, another vicious murder eventually turned into a cold case. As for Michael Gargiulo, his romantic life was once again in turmoil. He left his girlfriend and new baby in suburban LA and headed to the beach, Santa Monica. And once again, where Gargiulo went, an attack eventually followed.
A young woman is woken up by a man attacking her with a knife.
Santa Monica, April 28, 2008. Another break-in, another brutal assault. But this attack would change everything.
I got the call at about 12:30 in the morning from my sergeant and asked me to come out and respond to a scene of a stabbing or attempted murder.
Then Santa Monica Police Sergeant Richard Lewis.
He gained access into this window, which was open a few inches. And once he got inside there, he then opens the front door and kind of stages it as an escape route. Proceeds into the bedroom where she's sleeping, and what awakes her is a knife being plunged into her.
He just flat out stabbed her.
Right. She was stabbed multiple times in her chest and shoulder and right arm, and suffered several wounds to both of her hands as she's grabbing this knife as it's being plunged down upon her.
The victim was 26-year-old Michelle Murphy.
What can you tell us about her?
She's an incredible young lady, and just someone who's very resilient and decided to fight.
As Murphy, all of 5'1", was fighting for her life, the blade is slipping back and forth. And somewhere in the struggle, the attacker is also cut.
And at some point, there's a lull in the action, and she was able to get her feet up underneath and kick him off of her.
The attacker stumbles off the bed and out of the room. Bleeding profusely from her multiple stab wounds, Murphy runs after the hooded man down the hallway to the front door.
Did he say anything to her ever?
I'm sorry.
He said, "I'm sorry."
I'm sorry.
Then he ran out. Michelle immediately called her boyfriend, who called 911.
She told me that she woke up and there was someone on top of her and she forced them off and they ran out. Okay, we are on our way.
Then the police call Michelle.
Okay, what is your name?
It's very hard to hear her answers.
The fire department is already on the way and we're on our way. What does this person look like?
He's definitely not me after like a long sleep, like sweater kind of thing. Everything's just dark.
You don't know how big this guy was? How tall he was?
Maybe the whole, I don't know, like 5'11" or something.
So he comes out this door and there's blood on the steps right outside the front door?
We have some blood on the steps.
Okay.
And then blood on the concrete steps here, leading out down this walkway and into the alley.
So how significant in your investigation and when you showed up that night, did you think that blood was going to be?
Huge, huge. About 25 days after submitting my samples to the crime lab, I'm informed by a criminalist where we actually have a hit, a DNA hit.
And who does it match?
Michael Gargiulo.
Conclusively?
Yes.
They were able to make the match because, remember, Gargiulo's DNA had been collected for DNA testing in the Picacho case and was already in file. And guess where Gargiulo lived at the time of the attack?
It'd be the second building down, and the first window would be just above that black trash can that you see on the left side.
He could see right into her bedroom?
If she were to have the blinds open, that'd be correct.
That's pretty scary.
Yes, absolutely.
Within 24 hours of making that DNA match, Gargiulo was arrested for the assault of Michelle Murphy.
He was taken into custody.
And what was his response?
His response was, "Which agency is this?"
What did that say to you?
That tells me a lot. It tells me that he wasn't sure of which crime he's getting charged for.
But that there was more than one out there.
To me, that's what that meant, yes.
Sergeant Lewis was reminded of a conversation he'd once had with Detective Lilyfield about a similar murder that had happened 3 years earlier in El Monte, just outside of Los Angeles.
I got a call from Sergeant Rich Lewis from the Santa Monica Police Department. He had a case that was very similar. Luckily, his victim survived, and he had identified a suspect.
And it turns out Gargiulo once lived close enough to Maria Bruno to also watch her. She reported to friends run-ins with the strange guy across the way.
So this is her apartment, and where was Gargiulo's apartment located?
If you turn around and look, it's right over your right shoulder. It's apartment number 34.
So that is up just behind that tree, correct?
Correct, just to the right of that tree. So you've got a clear view, obviously, from his apartment.
Now, the pieces of the puzzle were finally starting to come together. Determined investigators had discovered more evidence. Remember that blue booty found near Maria Bruno's front door? In Gargiulo's old apartment, just across the way.
And sure enough, in the attic of the apartment, we wound up finding a matching booty, a blue cotton booty, just like the same one that we had found at the crime scene, the same manufacturer, the same make, the same model of booty.
And in that 2001 murder of Ashley Ellerin, Gargiulo lived only a couple of blocks away. He was frequently seen hanging out with his dog at this park directly across the street from Ashley's home.
We had information that he's, frequented the dog park, parked his vehicle on occasion over there.
Within a month, Michael Gargiulo was also charged with the murders of Ashley Ellerin and Maria Bruno. When Trisha Picacio's family heard that Mike Gargiulo had been arrested in LA, they were certain he would soon be charged with Trisha's murder. But nothing happened. Then, in 2011, 48 Hours ran our first show about the so-called Hollywood Ripper and the unsolved murder of Trisha Picacho. Almost immediately after the show aired, a witness reached out to me.
I watched the show, and it was a mugshot of Mike.
Teamer Leary, one of Michael Gargiulo's bouncer buddies from Hollywood.
And did you reach out to Anthony?
I did. I sent him a text.
Yeah, he tried.
Did you know Mike's a serial killer?
Turns out both Teamer and Anthony DiLorenzo had led checkered lives of their own, in and out of jail. But both men were now fathers, and seeing Trisha's father on 48 Hours moved them.
I tried to revive her. That is the worst feeling in your life, when you can't do nothing for somebody you love.
I get emotional because I love my children. And when I look at him and I see that video to this day, I get a pain in my chest that any man would have to miss and love their child like that.
So you're watching it, and we're telling the story, and you have...
I already know.
You already know. You have pieces of the puzzle that we don't even know exist.
Yeah. I said I have to let somebody know what I know.
Here's what Teamer and Anthony knew. They said back in 2000, when they were all working together, Michael Gargiulo told them he had murdered a girl in Chicago.
We're cruising down Sunset. He asked us, but he's like, "You guys ever kill anybody?" And he's like, "I have." And we're like, "Shut up, shut up."
Here we go again.
He said he buried this. He goes, "Yeah, I buried a bitch." He goes, "I left a bitch on the steps for dead."
We put them in touch with Chicago authorities, and soon Michael Gargiulo was indicted for the murder of Trisha Picacho, 18 years after her death. Then Cook County State's Attorney Anita Alvarez.
There's new evidence that has just come forward after the 48-hour episode. Really, coupled with the DNA, we feel at this point that we have sufficient evidence.
But the Picachos' search for justice was just beginning. There was a long road ahead, full of unexpected twists and turns.
Well, see, my truth is being 100% innocent, being wrongfully charged. All I could do is be calm. and fight for my innocence.
Up next,
I hate you, I hate you, I hate you.
the accused Hollywood Ripper faces trial.
This was somebody who was going to take pleasure in plunging a knife into their victim over and over and over again.
Celebrity Ashton Kutcher takes the stand. In a surprise, both the prosecution and the defense make him their star witness.
Ashton Kutcher talked about what would have been his first date with one of the murder victims.
The case will not be easy for the DA.
Zero trace evidence, no eyewitnesses, no fingerprints. Really, they had nothing.
And the defense says there may be other killers out there.
They just have to establish some reasonable doubt in the minds of the jury.
And offer a bizarre story.
Began a circular slicing motion.
Multiple personalities.
It was really a very strange spectacle.
And even possession.
If you are caught red-handed doing something, you can say, I was there, but I wasn't.
You don't want to think that a regular person, can actually commit this horrific of a crime and then just go live day to day. Who does that?
The case of the Hollywood Ripper is not over. Not by a long shot.
It's really, really sick.
This special two-part edition of 48 Hours will continue.